Have you ever been playing on your Xbox One and thought, it's not the Super Nintendo? Well, Hyperkin here has the answer to a problem you didn't know you had. This is the X91 Ice. This is Hyperkin's 90s style controller, Super Nintendo, for the Xbox One and Windows 10. Now, this is an official Xbox product, licensed by Microsoft, but manufactured and designed by our buddies over at Hyperkin. In light of the recent announcement of the Xbox Xenon, a replica Xbox 360 controller, I wanted to go through and take a look at the other Hyperkin officially licensed Xbox controllers that we have at Nostalgia. We've already checked out the Duke. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out because that controller is spectacular. The modern quality of life improvements like the added shoulder buttons, as well as just the love that was put into that controller with the start button being a screen that plays the original Xbox startup screen, that's just so cool. So instead of being a replica or re-release of an older controller, this is a brand new design from Hyperkin that is sort of made to emulate the aesthetic and feel of a Super Nintendo controller. But you know, have analog sticks and work on an Xbox One. So on the front of the box here, you have a nice 2-scale depiction of what the controller looks like. On the side, you have the side, and on the back, you guessed it, the back. Now it has some bullet points here, premium build, precision analog triggers, 3.5mm headphone jack, and a retro design with modern ergonomics. Without further ado, let's check this thing out. Inside, you get this little, or the quick start guide, and it pretty much just says in a handful of different languages, plug it in and turn it on. And here is the X91 Ice in its glory. And this thing is a whole lot cooler than I expected it to be. It is both simultaneously bigger and smaller than I thought it'd be. Because you have the triggers here, I feel like I want to hold it like an Xbox controller with my fingers like this or like this, and I want to have the handles here, but you don't. So it's got a slightly weird feel, but you have some more dexterity to it. Now, a lot of people who play fighting games really prefer to have controllers like this that give you sort of that extra mobility and dexterity here. And I can absolutely see that. If you're a Street Fighter or Killer Instinct fan, this would be a great controller to have. Now you have pretty much everything you get on a standard Xbox One controller. Really the only difference being that the D-pad is sort of scrunched up a bit. Other than that, the button placement is exactly the same as the Xbox One controller you're already familiar with. The biggest difference besides the ergonomics here for me is the different shape of the triggers here. For the most part, the shoulder buttons are the same. These triggers are flat and sort of, I don't know, they feel like pedals instead of triggers. You know what I'm saying? All of these buttons feel great and pretty much feel like they do on a standard Xbox One controller. Again, the only difference really being the triggers. The Xbox One triggers are super buttery smooth. These ones feel like they give you a little more resistance, and there's a little more sort of springiness to it. I don't know if that makes sense. When you get all the way on this trigger, it like you hit a wall. This one sort of feels like there's some give there. And this is how they sound. This is the standard Xbox One controller. This is the X91 Ice. But with the shoulder buttons, I feel like there's more travel on the Xbox One standard controller. With this, it feels like that instant input for a fighting game. Now, honestly, the biggest game changer for me personally is the actual shape of the face buttons. Now, if you look at those face buttons compared to the standard Xbox One controller, you can tell that they are sort of plateaued. They're flat on the top instead of the fully convex of the standard control. And that actually makes these buttons feel a whole lot more distinct. When rolling your thumb along the face buttons, playing a fighting game or any game in general, you really tell when you move from a different button to another. Whereas with the standard controller, you roll your thumb around, it sort of just glides into all the different buttons. It doesn't make them any harder to press, but I do feel like it helps sort of differentiate between the buttons and help prevent from an accidental input. Now the menu and share buttons also have that shape, but it's really not that much of a difference for those. Another difference here is that you can probably tell that the analog sticks are a bit taller. The main stick there, from the body of the controller to the thumb pad, is thinner and longer than the standard controller. That gives you a little more travel, a little more fine-tuning precision. But when you understand it and you get used to it, it's a very valuable asset in fighting games where you require those instant inputs and those quick split-second reactions. It allows you to really have control over your character. Now, the elephant in the room is that, yes, this is a wired controller and does not have wireless capabilities, which kind of stinks with a console like the Xbox One. But I mean, it's a 90s style controller. All the Super Nintendo controllers are wired, so personally I think it adds to the vibes. But as with all of Hyperkin's controllers, it has an obnoxiously long cable. This thing is hands down 10 feet plus. I'm 6'2", and if I stand straight up and hold this as far as I can up in the air, there's still some all bunched up on the ground. And this also sort of has an original Xbox style breakaway cable. So you've got this sort of extension with the USB on one end that connects to the main cable here. And I don't know what that adapter is called. But this cable is nice and high quality, and you can sort of see the inner braidedness of it. And you've got this sort of harder plastic rubberiness that doesn't feel like that real like cheap rubber that just sort of like frays and breaks upon any contact with like a chair wheel or something. Because we are a long way away from the days of Mad Catz, and Hyperkin does a fantastic job with their premium controllers. They feel premium, the materials are great, and they work great. If you've watched any of our other videos, you know that I always love Hyperkin's controllers, and these special edition ones that are released on their own for newer consoles are they're just spectacular. And honestly, usually are just a little bit cheaper than a standard first-party OEM controller for these consoles. Now, if I can get something that's in transparent plastic, yeah, sign me up. This is a fantastic controller for any fighting game enthusiasts, or if you just want something that's a bit cheaper than a standard OEM controller and want something a bit unique and different for your setup. Now, we do have these available at Nostalgic Video Games and soon our online store. We are in the process of developing that online store and inventorying everything so you can order from us from the comfort of your own home. Absolutely stay tuned for that because I will let you know when it is finally up and running. And at Nostalgic, we are still running our holiday sale. Buy 3 games, get 1 free. So if you need some last minute gifts for Christmas, come on down and see us. Thanks for tuning in to the Nostalgic Network, and I'll see you next time.